Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Revenge is Ice Cream. First up we have Want Me to Write My Work? Sure. By Familiar Ears 7462. So for some backstory, I have problems with writing out things by hand. I don't know exactly what it is, I don't particularly want to get it checked out. The reason for this is just due to not wishing to waste the doctor's time when they have more important things to do. I've suffered with this problem for about 4 or 5 years, and I am a 16-year-old biological male. Honestly, buddy, if you're suffering with that, and it's been a few years at this age, you should get it checked out. The problem is that when I write for extended periods of time, 10 to 15 minutes, I get extreme cramps in my hand that leave me unable to move my fingers until they subside. Usually, I can feel them coming before they happen, so I can put the pen down first and stop it from fully happening. I also have problems with handwriting, as a result, and cannot write very quickly. I'm studying for my exams at home and do all my work on a laptop to avoid problems with my hand. I am proficient at typing with one hand, as to avoid the problems with the other. My grandmother is always saying I work too slowly. I start work at 9 a.m. and I'm done at 7 or 8 p.m. depending on what the work is. Yesterday, she blamed my lack of working quickly on the fact that I'm on a laptop, and can obviously write quicker than I type. This is not the case. I don't think it's the case for most people, actually. When she said the next day that I would not be typing an entire English transactional writing piece, I tried making my point to her, and she wasn't listening. Here is where the compliance comes in. The next day, today, when I had sat down to do this writing piece, she took the laptop from in front of me and put lined paper down. Touching your property? I think not. But okay, let's see how it goes. I had 50 minutes to write it all out, and so I was grinning from ear to ear, knowing what was about to happen. I started to write and everything was going well. I wasn't trying to be slow. I was going quicker than usual. I felt my hands start to cramp and told her about it, which she huffed at me and told me to just get on with it and stop being a hypochondriac. And so I did, and not less than 2 minutes later my hand cramped and locked up. It continued like this for 8 minutes, and while it was extremely painful, I tried to keep quiet in order to let my plan work. When the cramp subsided, I continued on with my work, and it happened again. I think it all happened 3 times before my time was up. I had written a single 8-line paragraph, which was just shy of 130 words in it. She was not pleased and told me that I was going slow on purpose just to piss her off, which I explained again, and she finally let me do it on my laptop, to which I got 3 paragraphs plus a conclusion in those 50 minutes while typing with one hand. I'm in the UK just to provide clarification. I wish I was able to show how I hold pens, but I can't attach images for some reason, and they're going to get an appointment to get their hand looked at. Because yes, the doctors are busy, but you have the benefit of being in the UK, and you do have a right to medical care, and this, you want to make sure it's not a more serious issue than it is. Okay, story number 2. Park in my loading bay. Enjoy getting your car off a stack of pallets. By Harry Coronary. Long, true, and overly detailed. As a teenager, I worked on an island at a grocery store as the store receiver. Technically, I was the night receiver, but I worked 9 to 6 p.m. and was in charge of receiving the most important truck of the day, getting it unloaded, all our garbage and returns and extra pallets, cardboard, etc. loaded, and back out the door in time for it to drive halfway around the island and catch the same ferry it had come on before it left. So time was of the absolute essence. The island is a pretty chill place in the winter, but in this summer it is a rich man's playground, and we often got people parking in our loading bay. So 30 minutes before the truck comes, I always put out 3-foot-tall cones. Smart. One day a lady in a red convertible decides to push aside one of the cones and parks directly in our loading bay. It's a good way to get your windshield smashed. And your back window smashed. And your tires slashed. I'm feeling grumpy today. Not that I'm encouraging you to do violence, because that'll just get you in trouble. I saw her do it and ran out after her, telling her to move. She refused and went into the store anyhow, claiming, "I know Denny, the store owner, and he said it was fine." Well, I also knew Danny and knew he didn't say it was fine, but after making repeated announcements and instructing all the cashiers not to let her check out and pay until she moved the car, she came out fuming and moved the car. Nicely done. The next morning, the store owner, Danny, asked me what happened, and I told him exactly what I had done, as the truck was on its way. He told me that was fine, and he would speak to her. Surprise, surprise, she did in fact know Danny, but he hadn't given her permission to park in our dock. He did ask me not to tow her car or go on, as she was his neighbor, but since it was a convertible, he didn't see why we couldn't pull her e-brake and push it out of the way, because you could get arrested for attempting to steal her car, technically. Which, sure enough, is exactly what we did a week later, when she again parked in between my cones, and then facing the loading bay door, where I was giving her a clear look, flipped me off. I went inside and got a couple of other grocery guys, and after releasing the handbrake on her little red convertible, just pushed it straight across the parking lot. It barely gave enough room for our truck to get in, and she was completely blocked in for 30 minutes while I unloaded it. She came into the back of the store as I was unloading the trucks, and in order to stop a pallet from hitting her — the loading bay was at a wicked angle — I had to jam my foot under the pallet jack wheels, causing it to jump over my steel toes and land on my foot. I screamed at her to get out of my loading bay, and she was so shocked she actually did. Now you know how to speak to her in future. You know it works. Well, the next afternoon, when I came to get some things I needed to finish reporting, which I could do from home, as my shift manager had already approved a couple of days off to heal my foot. Danny didn't know any of this yet, as he had just arrived and immediately asked to speak to me. I had already been to the hospital and filled out my workers' comp forms about the injury. Fortunately, my foot wasn't broken, but was extremely badly bruised. Danny, actually a really decent boss, said he had a complaint from a customer about me screaming and swearing at a customer, and wanted to know my side of the story. I asked if it was the same lady with the red car. He confirmed it was, which to him confirmed that I had in fact screamed at her. I then asked him if he had seen the security tapes from the dock. There are several cameras. He hadn't, so I told him that until he watched the tapes, I didn't want to say anything. In front of me, he pulled up the tape, saw me on the dock, asking the lady to not park there. He saw her flip me off and leave the car anyhow. A few minutes later, he saw me push her car with the grocery clerks, and then he saw how it was blocked by our truck. Switching to the inside cameras, he saw how she pushed right past the employee-only doors and barged into the loading bay, and how I had used my own foot to stop her from being smashed by the pallet of milk I was whizzing down the loading bay. I literally saved her life with my foot. You couldn't see my foot or what stopped the pallet jack, but by then I had my shoe and sock off. Danny only took one look at my bruised foot to understand the cause of my rather loud yelling and what was being shown on the screen. Funny how Red Car Lady forgot to mention all these things when she was complaining to him. Danny said if she ever parked in the loading bay again to call a tow truck immediately. She should be fucking barred and dumped in the ocean, regardless of the time of day. He knew full well that I could have had a much more serious injury because of this lady, and even after having an entire pallet of milk on my foot and admittedly screaming at her to get out of the loading bay, I hadn't in fact even swore at her. And if I wanted to, I could have used the injury to get a lot more time off work, costing the business a lot more money instead of the 2 days I really did need to feel like I could walk again. While the next week came and went, and sure enough, Friday afternoon, who pulls up and parks not in the loading bay, but in front of the dumpster beside the loading bay, still effectively blocking our truck from making the wide turn to get into the bay. Sure, there are no cones there, but I was done. I didn't even say anything to her as she flipped me off again like she thinks she won somehow. I called a tow truck, but sadly they were at an accident and couldn't come for an hour. So I grabbed the produce guy and a grocery guy, this time unable to push her car as she has put the top up onto it, and rolled the windows up. I didn't care. I just took the pallet jack and had the produce guy drag out a few pallets. I put a pallet onto her car and, using the pallet jack, lifted and moved her car all the way across the parking lot, and then dropped it onto a stack of 2 more pallets. Her tires weren't even on the ground. I just left her like that and then told the tow truck where her car was when he had time. To her credit, she didn't come into my back end screaming like last time, but the screaming was loud enough that one of the managers called Danny, and he came down to the store, and without even talking to me, just backed me and banned her from the store. Finally! Fuck. I guess she wasn't as good a friend as she thought. Petty, yes. Rewarding, yes. Danny actually gave me a 10-cent raise. I'm assuming that's 10 cents, not $10. Raise right after that, and even told me I didn't do anything wrong. So I guess he thought she had crossed a line several times. Well, it's good that Danny did back you up on that. Yep, I do appreciate he was trying to avoid conflict with his neighbor. Although I must say, if y'all are on an island, and that's the store she chooses to frequent, probably aren't a lot of other options for groceries on there. That was not wise of her. Maybe she can't get her favorite snacks anymore. Maybe time away will help readjust her attitude. Story number 3. I temporarily stained the toilets at work with excrement to get back at the housekeeper for intentionally breaking my equipment. By breathtaking Ginger. They're all breathtaking, love. All of them. Years ago, I worked the overnight shift at a private club. The front door needed to be locked, but it had a sign and a plastic case that I hung in the door with a phone number for people to call if they arrived late and needed to get in. The housekeeper would come in the morning and take the sign down to clean the glass, which was fine because it was time to take the sign down anyway. Well, one day, after probably 5 years of doing this without issue, she decided to be angry about it. Her solution was not to tell me to take it down before she got there, but rather to throw the sign onto the chair by the door so hard it would break. I told her she shouldn't have done that, and she snapped, saying she shouldn't have to move it. I mean, she's the cleaner, right? Her job's literally to move shit and clean it. To be clear, she was whining about a 4x6-inch plastic picture frame with a sheet of printer paper inside. In an effort to keep the peace, I told her I would do it. The problem is, I am a creature of habit and forgot most of the time. She broke the sign repeatedly. I told her if it's that big of an issue and she sees I've forgotten, she should come get me and tell me to move it. She refused, saying she shouldn't have to do any of that because that's not my job. Finally, one day, the sign straight up went missing. That was the 3rd or 4th sign I had made by this point. I admit I should have tried harder to remember to take it down before she got there, but I also felt like this is an insane thing for a 40-year-old woman to throw a tantrum over. Plus, you say it had been fine for years and she's suddenly got a problem with it? I was pissed it went missing, and I figured she threw it out, as I have witnessed her throwing out other things she arbitrarily decided she didn't like, despite the fact that she knew others used them. So I concocted a delightful bit of petty revenge. Since I work alone 3rd shift, there is no one else to be offended by things like smells. I had no issue making chili for breakfast, as farting all night made no difference when you worked alone. I don't know, if you fart long enough and frequently enough, you start to irritate yourself. But it also creates some truly heinous shits. Shits that can temporarily stain porcelain. What are you putting in your chili? Nothing nearly as permanent as her shattering a flimsy plastic picture frame, but also scrubbing the toilets was 100% her job. Not only did I increase my chili intake for about 2 weeks, but I also ate as much asparagus as I could stomach, and anything that would increase the colour and stench of my excrement. I then made sure to use the same toilet all night, and didn't flush until I saw her coming into the camera. Funnily enough, this petty revenge improved my memory for taking down the sign, as I did that just moments before flushing the toilet. Needless to say, 8 hours of chili shit and asparagus piss soup in the toilet did a number on the nose, and faintly stained the porcelain a light orange shade. This place was pretty top-notch, so if the toilets weren't pristine it was an issue, but I also knew from scrubbing my own toilet that it would come off, and just needed to scrub slightly harder. The best part was the bathroom shared a wall with my office, so I could hear a lot of what went on in there. So every morning for 2 weeks straight, I would hear the bathroom door open, then hear the window open, followed by her violently throwing up the toilet seat and scrubbing for all she's worth. Once or twice, I swear I heard her muttering under her breath. I never told her it was me. I don't recall if she ever asked, but I could sense her frustration when I heard how hard the toilet seat hit the top of the toilet. She never pulled it up that hard before. Maybe this makes me an asshole. I mean, an asshole was involved in the situation, but I don't think necessarily. But I really don't feel bad. Don't break my stuff. Oh, and I forgot to mention, she eventually quit a few months after that. Shatter into oblivion, did you? Then maybe 6 months after she quit, I found the missing sign. She hid it on the top shelf of the cabinet in my office because I am average height, therefore I couldn't see or reach it. She was 6 feet tall, so it was no problem for her. I had to climb on the desk to get it down. And when I did, I saw a big crack in it. You need to find out where she's working now, and poop! Poop like the wind for justice! Alright, story number 4. Neighbors being disrespectful. Have fun listening to Street Fighter on full blast. By Urameshi Yusuke. This is also technically part of my dad's revenge. Lately, my next-door neighbors have been really disrespectful to me and my family. They tend to throw trash over the backyard fence and onto our lawn. I never understand the logic of people doing that. Put their garbage bags on our side of the lawn. Our neighborhood has a limit of 4 garbage bags on each lawn. Their kids yell at us whenever they see one of us, etc. Every Saturday night, they tend to have parties for some reason, and they always play loud music until like 4 a.m. Why is always these obnoxious fucks that are social butterflies? Other people in the neighborhood, including us, have tried telling them not to play loud music at night when we're trying to sleep, but they just don't care and keep doing it. The final straw was last Friday when they threw their garbage bags on our side of the lawn, so my dad went to put it back and my neighbor saw him and came out of his house and started yelling at my dad and threw the bag back onto our side. Needless to say, my dad was super pissed about it. I recently got a SNES with a few games. When was this written? Oh, okay. One of them being Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I'm a massive Street Fighter fan. On Saturday, my dad saw it, and he had a plan. My dad got a wired speaker from a giveaway at his office, and he tried it out, and it was super loud on full blast. That night around 9 p.m. our neighbors had their party again, and were playing their loud music, so my dad told my mom about the plan. My mom took my younger siblings and my dog to her friend's house, while me and my dad stayed home. He got the speaker out and hooked it up to the small TV in my room. My room is the closest to my neighbor's house. We turned the TV on, tested the speaker on a low volume, of course, and then muted the TV. He put the speaker on the window closest to the neighbor's house. We had a few practice rounds, then we went on to play Mario Kart, then we waited. At around 12:30 a.m., our plan went into action. We opened my windows, popped Street Fighter in, and turned on the TV and the SNES. Went into multiplayer, and picked our characters. I selected Dalsim, and my dad picked Saget. For those unfamiliar, both shout stuff during their special moves, and it gets extremely annoying. Dalsim shouts yoga while Saget shouts tiger. After we select our characters, we unmute the TV and turn the volume up to full blast. Round 1, fight! We then hear the neighbors and people at the party shouting, "The fuck was that?" and stuff like that. We then go into battle and keep spamming our special moves, so they had to put up with the constant tiger, tiger, yoga, 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 fire, tiger, tiger, uppercut on full blast. The speaker was so loud it drowned out their music. After about 10 minutes or so, my neighbor's music stops. I hear a loud group of people leaving. I look outside and, yep, it's everyone from the neighbor's party leaving. After they all leave, we turn off the TV and just relax, knowing that we got our revenge for how many times they have been disrespectful to us. Haven't heard a word from them since. Plus you got a really precious memory of, with your dad. You'll treasure that in the future. And the fifth and final story today is Punished for Overperforming. So I did the bare minimum before leaving, by Mandoman, 1973. I worked remotely for an auto parts company for almost 4 years, finally getting a promotion after the company merged with another. But even though I performed my duties better than others in my department, I was effectively punished for being so good. I started working for a company founded in my area that had a reach around the world for classic auto parts. Sure, we had supplier issues, shipping delays, you name it. But the reputation of this company for being such a large source of hard-to-find car parts, from Model T and A Fords, all the way up to modern muscle cars and everything in between. One of the brilliant minds in the management team decided to purchase a new sales, parts, and service program for us, and it went downhill from there. Where one program would say we had 10 pieces of one item, inventory would say we had none. And where our accounting program would say a vendor was due payment, another would say nothing was owed. No one really knew what was going on until after the culprit manager had left with a hefty severance package. We started losing business, customers, vendors, and I, as a case manager, had to field calls daily trying to give whatever company line I was told to give to make customers happy. We had a high turnover rate because of this, and the company almost went bankrupt. Enter Big Auto Parts, aka BAP, came in with promises to fix everything. They did, for the most part. They paid off vendors, closed accounts, worked to repair bad relationships with everyone, and let go 60% of the staff from the building in my town. Sad, yes, but unfortunately that's the price of business. About 6 months after the merger, I was promoted to Customer Operations Specialist. I no longer took calls, but I had to make them for any number of reasons. When I started this new position, there was another person there, Lucy, as well. We had different duties in the same department. I would research the issue that came up, and she would call the customer to work out a solution. For a quick example, if an item ordered was out of stock or delayed, I would find a different part or call the supplier for an ETA. This would go to Lucy, and she would call to ask the customer if they wanted to wait or accept a comparable item. It only took 3 weeks for Lucy to decide she didn't fit in and left the company. This left a big hole to fill, and because I was used to calling customers, I was asked to do double duty. It worked out surprisingly well because I was already familiar with the situations and could make better suggestions while on the phone with the customers. My supervisor did recognize my success and put me in for a small raise, which I did get. I was making good money doing something I really enjoyed. The company started growing, and with it, more work needed to be done by everyone. We had a ticket system that, while not perfect, was adequate. Occasionally there would be a hiccup in the system, and hundreds and sometimes thousands of irrelevant tickets would come across my desk. I started noticing patterns and would call them out to my supervisor so someone with a higher pay scale than I could fix the underlying issue, and we could all go home happy at the end of the day. Part of this growth meant that there were some areas in my department that would get too many tickets for the assigned person to handle solo. So I was asked to cross-train and learn these other areas. It didn't take long, and soon I was doing other people's jobs better than them. I think it was a combination of me wanting to succeed and them wanting to do bare minimum, and this plays into my malicious compliance near the end of this story. We had a point system that tracked how many tickets we worked, how long we spent on them, and whether the ticket needed a follow-up or could be closed as satisfied. The majority of my tickets could be closed because of one reason or another, and I always hit the metrics asked in order to secure a weekly bonus of $2.50 more per hour. Meeting my bonus put me above the $20 per hour range every week, with very few exceptions. So I was satisfied, thinking I was doing a good job. They required me to make a minimum of 200 calls to customers and pass 2,400 points to make the bonus, and every week I would make between 300 to 500 calls and hit nearly 7,000 points. In my youth, I got a degree from a local community college in video production, and that has always been my passion, but I was good at my current job and happy to be there. I got to take biannual trips to the corporate office, spring and winter, up north, made lots of friends, and even the owners of the company knew me by name due to my performance. My wife had changed jobs and was working for the local sheriff, and one day she emailed me that there was an opening in the media department. I applied and went through the 3-month process for possible employment, letting my current employer know they would be receiving a background check call. The process went smoothly, even resulting in me getting a call from the sheriff himself saying he was excited that I had applied. Back to my current company. I had been talked to several times about my numbers, with my supervisor telling me they were too high, and no one else makes nearly that amount of points. When I said I was just following the metrics and doing my job, he let me know that changes were coming. On the day I received my call from the sheriff about being accepted as a new employee, I had a meeting with my supervisor. Before I could tell him I was leaving, he announced that a new point system was going to be implemented, and if my current week's numbers were applied to the new schedule, my 7,000 points would only equal 1,800, far below the minimum for the bonus. When I mentioned this was essentially punishing good performance, he said, "Well, that's what the company wants to do." As I said earlier, the bonus put me above the $20 per hour line. My new job was going to start me above what I was making with the bonus, which made the decision to hand in my 2 weeks' notice right then and there so much easier. What cemented my decision was when I found out, even though I was going to finish my scheduled 40-hour work week on a Friday, since the end of payday week was Saturday and I wasn't working that day, I wouldn't get the comp time I earned. They were going to withhold earned sick and vacation time because of a technicality, after 4 years of faithful service. I actually liked my supervisor. He was younger than my married son and was disabled, a good kid with a great heart, but he hated he had to follow procedure in punishing hard work. I told him as much and mentioned that I would do what my original job description required, nothing more, for my last 2 weeks. It was glorious. We could take time off, if we had vacation or sick time available, if our work was done and we had nothing else to do for the rest of the day. I focused only on my originally assigned areas, and once completed I would clock out, putting in my comp time to make up for not being on the clock. I was able to use up all my time by my last day there, and because I wasn't helping anyone else, their work began to stack up. Not that I was doing it to punish any of the friends I made at that company, but simply to get the point across. Well, you shouldn't have been having to do it in the first place if it was their work. I could still see every ticket menu in all the areas where I had access, and their numbers began to climb out of control. I was contacted by my supervisor's boss on more than one occasion asking me to help out. And when I would point out that it wouldn't be fair to take points away from other people when I was about to leave, and that per policy, I was done with my assigned duties and therefore could leave for the rest of the day, he would stammer, trying to convince me to do what's good for the company. I simply said, I'm doing what's good for me. Unless you can offer me more than what the sheriff is willing to pay, I will only do what I am paid to do here until my last day. On my last day, I checked the ticket queue once again before signing off. My area had 0 tickets, and others where I worked that would average maybe 10 open or unworked tickets daily now showed hundreds. What made me feel better was about 6 months after I left, I got a Facebook message from one of my old co-workers that I actually liked, wishing me a Merry Christmas and telling me they had still not found anyone who could do as much as I had done. But I am happy where I am and have plans to do this as long as I can, retiring one day after a long tenure here. And I hope it works out for you. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you'd like to support the channel, you can sign up for my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. $1 or more a month gets you early access to all the videos at once on Monday. There's also links to my merchandise store on Teespring, as well as my Discord server, my Threads account, and my email if you need to contact me for any reason. That's everything for now. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourself.